All right, another 8 p.m., another Monday, another quick bites with HR bites. For everybody who's celebrating Eid Mubarak, for everybody who was celebrating yesterday, Gudi Padwa, Cheti Chand, all the festivals, and that's the richness of a country like ours, where diversity, inclusion, and so much more, the time to celebrate, the time to get together, and 8 p.m. Mondays is also, in a way, becoming a wonderful space because that's a space that I keenly look forward to week after week after week. And interestingly, the kind of topics that we've explored on Quick Bites with HR Bites has come from many of y'all as followers, as listeners. And my guest tonight, I'm going to say this one more time as I have goosebumps. My guest tonight is someone I have literally seen over decades as I started my career. I've seen this individual pivot himself in more ways than one. I've seen this person be a trendsetter, and I've seen this person carry his resignation in his pocket. I've seen this individual have the courage and have the strength to call a spade a spade. I've seen this person when, at the peak of his career, he decided to do something different. At 52, people generally think of how do I get through the next 5 years? But he did something phenomenally different. When you come to think of him, you can think of large multinational organizations, you can think of large Indian conglomerates, you can think of the hot seat at the table, but you can also think of the person beneath the hat. And today, we're going to touch base with the one and only Prabir Jha. Prabir, thank you so much for being on
Hi,
Quick Bites with HR Bites.
hi, Sahil. A pleasure to see you and a pleasure to spend time with you and the listeners and viewers of your show.
Superb, superb. So, Prabir, as we were thinking of what we should speak about, I think the word that really stuck with the two of us was culture, because over the decades of experience that you have and the little bit that I have, I think this is one of the most abused words in the fraternity. But before we get started with what culture is, um, Prabir as a brand, as a sub of culture, is actually a cult from the way I look at it. So tell me, Prabir, I've asked you this question earlier as well. I'm going to ask you one more time. What makes Prabir a cult?
I don't know. You're always very gracious and very kind. And yeah, I've heard variants of this word over my years. Uh, and in your introduction, you in a way answered it. I think one of the things which people look for, and which I will be honest, is in acute short supply, is courage. And the more I write about it, the more I think about it, particularly now that when I see it from the sidelines, I think courage in leadership is very rare. And when I look at my entire life and career, from the time I was in college, when I cleared the UPSC, became a civil servant at 22, 23. It's a dream job. 10 years later, you say, I've had enough. I came into the world of the corporate, which I had no idea about. I had no background to corporates, coming from a family of civil servants. And then, as you said, it was a fairy tale corporate career. God was kind. Again, to walk away. So, it takes a lot of courage to walk away. It takes a lot of courage to challenge an ecosystem. It takes a lot of courage to stand for what you believe is right. It takes a lot of courage to speak up and influence people who otherwise would say, "ये हमारे DNA में नहीं है." So I think these are little things that you do, and when people see you in action, that's when the folklore starts getting created, which incidentally is an important aspect of culture. And then you start meeting people. Lunch table conversations move from your company to other companies as people move, and I guess so. That's one dimension, Sahil, that I think is important. The other is the persona. At the end of the day, there must be a side to so-called, I'm using your words, a cult. I don't know whether I'm a cult, but uh, you have interests which you again are unabashed about. I love to cook, and I cook. I talk about cooking. I love wearing hats. I developed this passion. I can do a TED talk around and about hats. Or I've been a very passionate dog lover. Now I'm a grand dad to my son's pup. So people also find a sense of authenticity, a sense of humanness, a sense of being like anyone else. And I think the combination of both is what I assume helps people to stand apart and be different.
Right. And as you were speaking of TED Talks, it actually reminded me of that wonderful TED Talk that you did on the mosaic of careers, right? And how you painted it so beautifully. Praveen, you've pivoted yourself more ways than one in multiple formats. You also spoke about how courage is so important. But I'm sure there were a lot of challenges that came up, a lot of situations where you were at crossroads, where there were dilemmas that were before you. How does one really not really say that, hey, you know what? I have a comfortable life going on. Why do I need to invite trouble? Why do I need to invite a challenge? Why do I need to invite ridicule, if I may say so, and
Yes.
just take the trodden path? But what makes Prabir wear it on his sleeve? What makes Prabir keep a resignation in his pocket and say, hey, you know what? I'm fearless. What makes Prabir do that?
That's a very sharp journalistic question, and we can have a separate conversation only on that. See, one is Sahil. My needs are very limited. Even when I was fresh out of college, I was still in college when I got almost like a PPO from the president of India. It was a dream come true. One of the toughest exams in the world. And you had a great colonial life, lovely bungalow, servants, the works. And one day you decide to leave. Similarly, when you look at your corporate stints, the reasons, you are well stocked, you have paid a lot of money, you have everything that people otherwise dream of, right? And that, I will be honest, I mean, there's no quaish left for me. I've seen it all. Everything that a youngster, as he or she builds his or her career, would aspire. I've been very fortunate, very blessed, and very early in my life. I was a fast tracker. I got it. Uh, but you always have to ask yourself, between leading a life of convictions or leading a life of consequences, what would you pick? And maybe it's my DNA, maybe it is my acculturation, maybe it's my DNA, my childhood experiences, I don't know, whatever it is. And I've always felt that you should never be a victim of even the most interesting trappings that one dreams of, because at least in HR, it takes a lot of literally the word courage again, to do what is right. It is very easy to say, my boss, I'll check with the boss said this. I mean, and that's one of the challenges why HR also is struggling with a sense of independence. So my thing of resignation in my pocket, which of course was a line I used in one of my corporate stints, but it exemplifies me. I have never in my life ever gone to a chairman or a CEO asking anything for myself, my money, my promotion, my increment in my entire career, right? And when you have your pitched battles with such characters or with the board, you speak for what is fair to the company and what is fair to the employee, right? And if your needs are limited, you know what you need so much money for. But if you're greedy, which is a very human avarice, I mean, I'm not saying that everyone needs to be me, but there are people who would say, no, more crores, more land, more buildings, more house, cars. There is no end to it. At the end of the day, I've always joked that whether whatever the wealth that you accumulate, whether you go to heaven or hell, that money can never be exchanged. So I mean, as long as you have enough to keep your body and soul together, your fundamental needs met, you should do what makes you feel good. And to walk away therefore from every position of authority, money, comfort. I mean, a corporate, I could have continued. Many people ask me, 13 years, Prabir, you could have still kind of lauded everyone who becomes a so-called entrepreneur in the HR space does after retirement. You milk the system, You have made all your money. Then you say, I become a consultant, right? I did not
True.
want to do that. I did not want, with due respect to all the people, I also have never been a person who has tried to hang on to a job. I've actually believed that a great leader will always build his or her redundancy. And that's what I've done. It's not
Right.
fair to people who work on my team. If I'm going to sit there in some form or the other, or I retire and I become an advisor to the same company, how will you have a newer thought ever emerge? It's not fair. Now, these are very fundamental beliefs I've had. And while the easiest thing is to kind of be a sucker and continue, and we can all justify our roles and mark out time, but it's not me. I get bored. I'll be honest. I get bored. I can almost game the chairman. I can game the board. I know exactly who will smile when. It's not me. I just need to be with different people, a different challenge. I need to be both intellectually, be questioned. I want to learn something different. And so even in my advisory role, I mean, from cryptocurrency to pickle making and everything in between, how would I have ever been an employee of all these range of companies? But I've learned so much, in this
Right.
entire period. So that is what I think, gets me to think different, be different. And I don't even think it's different. I don't even know who is doing what. I'm not interested in gossip. I don't check in. What is this guy doing? How is I'm not interested. They are doing what they think is right for them, and good luck to them. I'm doing what I think is right with me. The only other thing is, yeah, sitting in my own house and walking my dog or doing my gardening or cooking my things. There's still a lot more of interest about what Prabir is doing or not doing. But yeah, so keep your needs very modest. Don't compare with anyone else. We've all, as a generation, done much better than what we were capable of or what we had aspired 20, 30 years ago. And just be grateful to God and follow your heart. One thing, and I'll end my answer on this. 35 years I've been working now. I have never had a problem with sleeping well. Never. I
Mm.
mean, whatever the office tension, howsoever difficult a situation, I have never had a problem with sleep. And the only thing is that, if your conscience is clear, because in the kind of work I've done all my life, I've only done challenge and transformation. That is really what, if someone were to ask me, defines me from my government days, where no one ever questions, the kind of things, and in the corporate life. So, I did what I thought was right. I took decisions which I thought was okay. Now, if my successor changes it, it is for him or her to do when they are in the hot seat. And
Right.
that's one good civil service training we had. In the government, if you're transferred, Sahil, you don't have notice period and transition time. The order comes and you are released, and the next guy takes over. You take over your new role, and that was very good conditioning. So early in my career as a youngster, uh, I have never ever gone, even in my advisory role, to my past companies, for work. I don't solicit work. I have not gone in my 6 years as an advisor or as a coach or whatever other services I do to anyone's office soliciting work. I don't. I just don't. Now, maybe it's a wrong business approach. But again, it comes from that same conviction that at the end of the day, if I have to go to someone and say, hey, I'm Prabir and I can help you with hiring a guy better than a search firm, or I can coach better than someone else, then what is this reputation worth? So I just think you have to follow your heart, you have to trust your instinct, and be content and satisfied with doing a good job, because good work will always sell itself. And that is what
Got it.
I have seen in the
Got it.
35.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So, Prabir, going back to the mosaic, right? Now, if you look at mosaic, you look at marble and you look at granite, right? All three very, very different kind of chemistries out there. If you had to draw an analogy to
You're
culture,
okay with a little beverage? It's not
of
alcohol.
course, we were actually waiting for some quick bites, but
Yeah.
beverage is also cool. But coming to think of it, drawing an analogy with the three of them, and you worked across different organizations, different cultures. How would this analogy fit in the corporate world? A mosaic, granite, and marble.
So, Sahil, the best way of describing it is they are all flooring. At the fundamental level, they are all floors.
Yeah.
And that is how I have seen organizations. This is a question I've been asked many a time: how is the government different from the corporate, or between one corporate to another? How is Tata different from Reliance, as an example? I mean, it is different, there's no doubt about it. But you can answer this question: the fundamentals of culture, the fundamentals of people, the fundamentals are just the same. I have not found any difference. Nuances vary. So at the end of the day, when I was in the civil service, I'll make a confession. I would think, or I would imagine, considering I had no exposure to the corporate world, I would think they are very agile, they are very professional, quote unquote. After so many years, I can admit the corporate has its own bureaucracy. I mean, the bureaucracy of the Tatas, the government of Reliance. I mean, these are massive organizations. They are complete bureaucracies. They are not very agile setups. Even in my nature of work, which is very simple, when you get through a legal contract of 15 pages and some kind of a search contract of 25 pages, you just wonder, and what is the value add of all of this, right?
Right.
So on the flip side, uh, all these cultures continue to have, and they can be defended in any way as possible. But I can give you hilarious anecdotes. I've had MNC companies, well-known MNC companies, send me contracts about sign the safety contract on scaffolding and safety norms you will follow. What safety norm and scaffolding am I doing? Does it add value to, but no one has ever applied his or her mind. Everyone, irrespective of what they do, which is bizarre. So the fact that no one deeply thinks different is one thing which is common everywhere. Everyone is just doing at a base level incremental work, right? Uh, People are people. Everyone looks for first their job security. 99% government can offer that more, private sector offers it less. But big companies give you job security, so you're less entrepreneurial. You don't do many adventures with startup world, right? Because that's the makeup. So I don't think that is also very different. From a leadership perspective, again, I used to think, when I was not in the corporate sector, oh, corporate leaders would be very different. Oh, they are as risk averse. They are as obsessively sir and ma'am controlled in spirit, if not only literally, right? So, and that's one of my bread and butter jobs. I mean, I'm trying to get them to be better leaders, but it's one of the biggest crises in corporates today. And so I don't think that it is very different. Only the nuances. Sometimes, you need to pick. For example, there is far more of business performance centricity in the corporate sector vis-a-vis the government. Or you may find issues about respect for people a little more accentuated in some private organizations vis-a-vis some private organizations. But it is not to say that there's a total typecast. Everyone in an organization X is exactly like that in behavior or experience, and someone else in some other company is different. So I think it's grossly exaggerated. And as HR, we have done our own job of trying to always say we are unique. The reality, I can now say after 35 years, it's all good for PPTs and all good for the rara, but at the core, I don't think organizations are as fundamentally different as what we otherwise like to
Right.
position. And yeah.
Got it. Sure. So, Prabir, with the rise of social media, we've actually seen culture have two very different dimensions, right? We've seen the rise of the influencers, where a lot of people have gone out there and they're promoting organizations or promoting brands. And we've
Yeah.
also seen organizations that are not doing as good practices as they are promoting on their social media. You have employees going out on various platforms on social to go and talk about what a poor experience they've had. So, how is culture evolving in the age of social media?
So, it's a great question, Sahil. Can I just give you a little context of what I believe is culture, and then I'll answer
Please,
this question? Yeah.
please, please.
So, culture it starts with the way we think, say, do, behave, relate, offer product, service, experiences, but it starts with the thought. And unfortunately, in most companies, HR leaders in general, focus a lot more on the doing. But thinking leads the way of doing. And uh, and this issue of trying to purport to be a different culture is again reflective of the way we think. If you think your entire exercise is to paint a certain scenario of yourself to a prospect, to the world outside, even if you're fake, it's the way you think because you believe that you can get away with it. The reality in social media, within the days of social media, is you can never get away with anything, right? At the end of the day, a promise is a promise to be kept, and no one expects you to be a picture perfect workplace. And I can share very honestly that in my own hiring experience as a CHRO across different companies, I would do a lot of dissuasive selling to a candidate or to a group of people. If you are looking for this, do not join this company because we are at that stage, or we are whatever it is. Do not join. So people deselect, and I always got this feedback: no CHRO Prabir comes and talks the way you do. They'll always say, "Oh, we are great, we are great, we are great, we are great," and I would say no, because the reality is what is great is for you to experience. And I will talk about some of the great things or the nicer things that we do, but we are what we are. And if you're looking for job security, I'm just making it up, we are the wrong destination for you. Suppose you are a hire fire culture, be honest about it. So as long as there is lesser dissonance between what you think, what you say, and what you do, and therefore you offer as an experience, people will possibly accept you better. And today the biggest struggle is authenticity, whether it's with individual brands or with corporate brands. People today don't know whether I can trust my leader, whether I can trust this organization. And trust is not about being perfect, trust is about being authentic. And therefore, when people try to make all these little touch ups to the pitch, and and I've seen this in many HR conferences. One reason I don't go anymore is, I mean, it just looks, every stage is about how good and great we are. I mean, there are very few people. I remember there was a time when in a very large company we were welcoming a very, very senior leader into the organization, and it was his induction days. And there were 10 of companies of that particular group, and we were making presentations. I was the third or the fourth to be invited, and I had only 4 slides, unlike all my other colleagues from all in the group. And I said, I'm not going to be telling you what is going great about my company, because in the role you're coming, I want you to know what are our challenges, what are we attempting to do, and I'm going to solicit, any advice, any counsel, etc. And the gentleman, he actually called this out, and he says, this is how a CHRO should think. Cut through the clutter. Tell me what's going wrong. What are your efforts? Where do you think you need help? And how can I add value or support you? So I think it's the same for social media. Social media is not always about looking perfect, every little pimple off and every little blemish, because honestly, it doesn't stay. It doesn't stay. It's a start point. But if the experiences of people are to the counter, you know, you ruin your reputation far faster than how you acquire it. So no, it's an absolutely no. And I would be the last person to recommend. In fact, I tell people that even when you have your values, etc., on the boards, cross your heart, how much of it do you actually experience? And a lot of my advisory work I do in this area, so I know. Because don't write that, because if people do not it's like, you're being shown the face of a boy or a girl before a wedding in the classical Indian wedding style, and suddenly the
Yeah,
guy discovers, it's not fair, it's not right.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we should be
It's
very
betrayal.
sensitive. Yes, and I think uh, it's a myth that, and if it is, then the guy is very juvenile in his or her thinking. No one expects a picture perfect boss. No one expects an organization which is absolutely flawless. But the more honestly you can, express, and the more honestly you can talk about it, the better it is for people to then take an informed decision. And uh, and I think that's how it is. And
Brilliant.
it's almost like asking a candidate, apart from the sale, that do you think this is the right place, or would you think I would be the right manager for someone like you?
Yeah.
Finally it's not just your call. And unfortunately today, even in HR, we continue to believe हम नौकरी दे रहे हैं. We
Which is not true.
continue to
Yeah. People are also
teach.
choosing us. Yeah.
Yes, it is a lot about choosing, and people look for authenticity. I have examples, but maybe if there is an occasion, I'll
Sure.
talk about it later.
Absolutely. So, Prabir, let's pick up a case in point. Of course, yesteryears, but turning a large organization into a 5-day work week. Get us into the details. Cut through the chase. Get us the knives through the butter, and tell us how did you do it? Where did you get stuck? How did you maneuver? What were some of the challenges? Not easy, but success.
Yeah.
Let us know the story.
So this story never leaves me. And first, give I would give the credit to the chairman that finally he nodded. But and it's on tape. I don't know how much of the gory details, but uh, when I joined this company, it was a giant of an organization. And as I started smelling and sniffing and listening to people, one thing which was very clear is that people are very upset with and I intellectually related with it because I had not worked 6 days. And I knew that if someone at my level, with all the comforts available to me, struggles with making sure that I do my shopping of the evening, the teaching of the children, walking of the dog, and all the things that, typical middle class people do, particularly with both spouses working, it is unsustainable. I also saw people waiting for the time to swipe out. People have stopped working half an hour before that. It was very obvious to me, it doesn't make sense. But we believed that that's discipline, that's control, command, and in the culture that one was wanting to create, because we were getting into very new age lines of business. Many of them are big giants now. And uh, and uh, therefore I so that was one reason. The other reason was that for me, transformation was my core agenda. That was the core expectation. So whenever you kind of get onto this journey of transformation, which cannot be an intellectual exercise, you've got to pick one ball and hit it out of the park. To establish belief in people that here is a guy who can do it. Like this is like a takeaway for a lot of people who are building their careers, right? Pick that one agenda which you believe will establish your credentials, because there's a reputation already by the time I've come to this organization. Oh, Prabir, my God, something is going to happen in this company, right? So this was to me the loose ball, but it was a very tough ball. So much so that, and I picked it up maybe in the first month, and I pulled this off in the third month. And there were a couple of rounds of conversation with the chairman, some very interesting ones. I was also told that in the past we've tried with a lot of data and facts and figures, which is the other learning. Everything is not about facts and figures. It is about selling it appropriately, because the facts haven't changed. And if facts have not supported this decision for so many years, that's not going to work. So I said, that's not the line I will take. And I took the line saying, hey, you invited me to be the group CHRO because you wanted the reputation of this company to be transformed, the blah, blah, blah. And if you've invited me, you've got to trust me. And you've got to then finally bless and support it. And I remember it was one afternoon when he actually said, Prabir, it's not in our DNA to have a 5-day week. And I can assure you, Sahil, and I'm quoting verbatim, it was literally across the table. I leaned into him, locked my eyes, and I told him, फिर DNA बदलना पड़ेगा. We will have to change the DNA. I do not honestly think many CHROs, very worthy CHROs, would have done that. They would have said, I've tried for 2 months with the chairman, it is not working, my conscience is clear, I'm done. I mean, that's not me. When I am convinced, I believe it is my job to convince anyone else. And that's what I've done for 35 years. If I'm convinced, I will convince you. And in this particular case, it was to play to the softer sensibilities of why it is. See, we are going to be a multi business conglomerate. Many will be newer age. The kind of talent will be drawing, your own personal reputation as where you want to take the company. And he signed at the end of that conversation. I'd gone prepared with my page. and we had a board meeting. Maybe it was the first time, the last time the group CHRO would have made a presentation. And before I got off stage, I said the chairman has something to announce. So you leave no loose ends, and then the board was ecstatic. Everyone, and when he announced it finally to the organization, they said the Berlin Wall had broken. People were hugging and kissing. But the more strategic import of this, see, at one level, it's a very simple decision, right? It's a very simple, stupid 6 day, 5 days, not a very strategic thing. But the metaphor of transformation was sealed. And then everything that we did, including on one pre-independence day on 14th of August, I remember we moved 24 policies to self-approval, things that MNCs don't do and will not do, right? How was it that this company has been running before me, is running after me? How was I able to do it? It is not that I have more brilliance, or it is, you just got to be clear. What is the strategic agenda you're trying to simplify the experience, you're trying to simplify the organization. You want to let go of excessive control, where even leaders and managers do are supposed to be approving your travel, but their secretaries are doing it. Why do we play these games? It is back to my opening comment about authenticity. You have to build a culture of greater trust, greater authenticity, greater ownership. Ownership does not come by fatwa. Ownership comes by experience, when they feel trusted. So that's how the story broadly panned out. But who knows, someday, a work of fiction will have more
Right.
details.
Absolutely. I'm sure. I've had to just feed forward, right? Whether that organization or any other organization, there's been a lot of debate about a 4 day work week. And do you think you subscribe to that personally, or you think it's just a overblown agenda of saying that 4 days, if you've got to work 5 days, right? Where is 4 days coming from? You can't work 4 days and relax 3 days. But if you had to drive, question number one, are you convinced on a 4 day work week? And if you are, and Prabir had to again roll up his sleeves and take up a full time CHRO role, of course, as you said, the context in a certain organization may be different, it may be very nuanced. But what would Prabir do for, let's say, a lot of HR people who are going to watch this video? If they wanted a checklist of how would Prabir approach a 4 day work week? And you never know, maybe 5 years later, someone's watching this video and actually practicing the checklist. So, Prabir, over to you.
So, Sahil, it's a great question. I've been reading a lot about the experiences of the 4 day week. Most of it is beyond India so far, and therefore there is an economic reality and there's a social context, which makes them value, you know, uh, reduced working hours. There's a lot more of social security. You know, uh, it has its flip side, right? At the end of the day, do they have they lost their edge? Is a question they would ask. In India, I don't know yet. I don't know yet. But what I am very clear about is work from anywhere. Unless you are in a job which necessarily needs you to be in a physical, you can't make medicines sitting in your house, or you can't make a tire, sitting playing golf. You can't do that, right? So, I mean, those things are notwithstanding. Jobs which can be done from anywhere, I'm a very strong advocate of allowing work from anywhere. And this is back to the hypocrisy question. When the pandemic had hit, very marquee companies, announced, "Oh, this is something which will never be rolled back. It's, well, you can work from anywhere, anytime in the future, etc." Either you should not have done all this so-called uh, bold speak, because it was not needed. It was premature. You could have said only in COVID times, this is what it's going to be. And look at what I hear from a lot of people about the rollback. Oh, no, we need you to come back. There are some very good examples I have found, including with some of my client companies who are very liberal with work from anywhere. But overall sentiment is, oh, people are going to kind of fraud, or the memes of which went around, people are peeling onions and tomatoes. My belief is any policy is not designed for 100% compliance. As a fundamental practice and belief, I believe that it's a myth to believe that anything that you announce as policy will apply to 100% people at all times. It cannot and must not. There will be a situation, Sahil, where you will have to make an exception. Your eligibility is for a hotel room of 10,000 rupees. You reach a place, it's costing you 10,500. What do? Do you sleep on the railway station? I mean, you got to apply your judgment. You got to apply your mind. Come on. I mean, so, and this is a conversation I've had with some very, very, very well known corporate leaders. And finally, they nod, but their companies still haven't changed, right? You'll have
Right.
voluminous. So I think work from anywhere, flexibility. For example, it's a rare late evening conversation I'm doing with you. I do not do any client conversations, even with global this thing at this hour, because I get up early in the morning. I'm absolutely high energy. That's when I think. That's when my posts go out. Over my kappa, I can write my posts. But at this time, my mind shut. And that's the way I've always been, even in my executive life. Once I've come home, I have not done calls. In my entire career, I will be honest, I have never called a late evening meeting ever. Now, I couldn't have been lucky or fortunate for 35 years. I mean, that is not fair to me. I have never called a meeting over a weekend. I have never, even if I've sent an email to someone, it is more because I'm productive at that time. And I've said, I do not expect a response from you. I'm just leaving that thought. So, it's about where does the person get his or her energy, the time of the day. So, whether it's a 4 day or a 5 day or work from anywhere, I believe trust your people. And it is a very delicate exercise. There will be some people who will betray the trust, sack them. But at the end of the day, when you give flexibility to people, people surprise you. And I can tell you in India, where we do a lot of Hamali work, and I've said a lot about the 70-hour week and all the SNS drama. I mean, it had a lot of eyeballs, my post. But with due respect to all very successful and very well accomplished leaders, the belief is that it's all about hard labor. Now, some jobs need physical labor, right? So now, if it needs 7 days of 24 by 7 work carrying, bricks on your head, I understand. But I would like to believe that the India that we are trying to make has to start thinking more innovatively, more creatively. And that is about working maybe less, but working more impactfully. And this is a paradigm which I don't think India Inc. has been able to get out of. So they make a certain spiel of the pulpit in conferences and all these endless HR or leadership conferences, but the practical deployment of what they talk is very poor. So I believe that measure people on impact. As my son jokes that, I earn more per hour today than I have ever earned in my life, which I say in a lot of my fireside chats. I wasted 50% of my life. And 50% of that was on account of meetings. Again, 50% of that meetings where I added no value, but I sat because I was management, or meetings which added no value to me, but I didn't have the guts to walk out of the meeting, or I thought I had FOMO. Now, these are things, again, the Prabir, again, if he was ever to be in the corporate, this is something is going to challenge, because I see that with client companies, 30 people in a room, 4 people are engaged in conversation, 10 are on their laptops. Why are we faking it? So the hypocrisy of leadership practice, whether it's a 4 day or a whatever, is the core. So as long as you are able to acknowledge that that's the core of your problem, and this control and this and all of that is typical human weakness. Oh, I want to see these guys, 10 guys sit before me, and I want to see them work till 12 o'clock at night. I mean, they may be playing computer games for all I care, because I know I talk to a lot of youngsters, and I can tell you they do not say that if they're sitting in office for 10 hours 5 days a week, they are actually doing productive work. It is impossible.
Not a sign of
So,
heroism. Absolutely.
so that's my take. So if I could, yes, and knowing myself, I would definitely remember this conversation and say, okay, guys, let's work backwards. And I'll tell you an answer which I'll get immediately. In most companies, when you ask them a question, and I ask very simple first principle questions, that's all I do. And they'll say, but sir, that's how we've always done. I said, think of a more creative answer. This is not a good enough answer. We've always done it that way. So why are you not a 4 day week? Because you've never done it before. So now let's think, if it had to be a 4 day week, what does it mean? Does it mean stretching an hour more on a certain day, or kind of, doing something else? Which 4 days? Is it everyone is off on the same 4 days, on those 3 days, or do you stagger so that the company is working 7 days, but people are working only 4 days? Right. So there are ways of skinning the cat, but I've always said, Sahil, नीति के पहले नियत. Your niyat has to be clear. Your intent has to be clear. I think leadership is still stuck between their niyat. They say something because it's the nice thing to say, and that's what all these so-called HR awards and people awards and all these kind of great place awards, but the reality is, there's a lot of gap. And the way you framed your initial question is an answer that you're hearing from me every time tautologically. It's about authenticity. It's, and
Right.
companies say we are very complex. I can tell you no organization who says it's complex is being fair to itself. And the one word which was on my whiteboard in every CHRO stint of mine in my office was the word simplify. Every Everything
True.
can be simplified. And if it means 4 days a week, we will get to 4 days a week, right?
Right.
But ask the fundamental. It's not about 4 day and 5 day. The fundamental question is, what will make you more innovative, what will make you more impactful, and what will make it a simpler organization to work in. If you can answer these questions and it gets you to 4 day week, by all means we should then say 4 day week. Let's try it out.
Right. Brilliant. Very, very nice. Prabir, while we spend a lot of time talking about the organizational context to culture, let's also go to the other side of the spectrum from an employee point of view. What have you seen has been the trade off or the price that employees pay for radical candor? Have you seen cultures where it is, people say, come up, speak to me, let's reverse mentor. I love to get ideas. And then after that, they go after the person. Or have you really seen the safe spaces, psychologically safe spaces? How does culture get built where you invite people to speak, but at the same time also have the courage to take it with a pinch of salt, or even if it is against you, you take it in a manner in which you don't retaliate? So, how do you really see that building up from a radical candor perspective?
That is a super question, Sahil. It's a mixed bag. There are some companies. Let's not even talk companies. See, what's a company? The company is the manager in most cases, right? So
Absolutely.
there are some individuals who are islands of great psychological safety in a sea of absolute toxicity. And there are some toxic managers, in an ocean of otherwise great psychological safety. So it's the individual experience with that individual. In many cases it's a dyad. Now, in some cases the dyad could have multiple dyad interactions. So it's a mixed bag. So overall, however, if you ask me, it is a lot more which is mouthed, less practiced. I think the challenge, in fact, this is something I wrote an article on. We are obsessed with leaders. We are not paranoid about leadership. That's the India ink for you. My honorable chairman, this has been said by very senior people. My honorable chairman, who talks like this? So now, if someone who is such a senior leader in a function, in a giant organization, in a public conference talks like that, I'm shocked, right? What do you think will happen with him, and so on and so forth down the line? So ultimately, or when I would say I've not yet been knighted by the Queen at that time. Charles wasn't the king. When I get knighted by the Queen, call me sir or ma'am. Now, having worked 10 years in the government, which is a high sir and ma'am culture, if I could be first name to people who are younger than my children, what stops so many leaders? So I think individual ego. I have 30 years of experience. How can you talk to me like that? Or playing God is very central to Indian reality. And for a moment, I am not excluding MNCs working in India. Just so that, I'm not.
Yes.
There may be a
Yeah.
little bit of spit and polish there more than somewhere else. But I think that is the reality. Uh, and most of it does not happens because of the reasons I just cited. Years, I'm
Absolutely.
the boss, I know it better, I know it all. How can you, and so on and so forth. Even when they ask for feedback, it's a ritual typically that they're expecting. They are not expecting you to be brutal. So that's the overall archetype. And yet there are some excellent examples that I have personally witnessed of great leaders, maybe pockets of culture where actually you can speak up. In a town hall, you can actually ask the most brutal question and not the politically strategic question,
Or the
right?
scripted ones.
or the scripted ones. And now that I do a lot of work in this, I sometimes say, let me be the fly on the wall. I want to sit in your management meetings. I want to sit and attend your town hall. You can smell that culture of a company immediately, right? uh, and the answers that go with them. So it is finally, it gets translated to folklore, it gets translated to lunch table conversations, and therefore it gets magnified. So even when a newcomer comes, what he or she is told is what the folklore gets created, right? Or they will tell you all this, but actually they don't expect you to be very honest in your opinion. You are expected, they'll say anyone else has a view. I have seen this with some very, very large successful companies. The chairman of a company will say anyone else has a view, even in the management team, and everyone says no sir, it's good. So at the end of the day, it takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable. See, it seems very contradictory, but unless you have inherent courage, and again, it's back to your social media question: who are you trying to impress?
Yeah.
You don't need to impress. It's like when I was interviewed by the UPSC, I was a young 22-year-old lad in university. Sitting across me, five very distinguished people from, I mean, they were the who's who of the country. I mean, they have no need to impress me. I mean, and they were so nice in the way they kind of managed that conversation. But does the corporate always work that way? No. So I still think it's a very strong work in progress, Sahil. I think we can
Got
do a
it.
lot more. And I will end my answer with one more thing. I thought the startup, the new age, the younger entrepreneurs will be different because I advise also a lot of startups in my new life. Uh, I honestly don't think I see that in motion. And the challenge and the relevance of your question is, when they do not have role models or experiences which were positive, there's a greater possibility that they will also have the same behavior with their newer people, and therefore the trickle down effect. And that
Yeah.
is what worries me a lot, that will things ever change? So a current 30-year-old leader, he's as abrasive as maybe his boss was. And I know firms where there's a dearth of demonstrated leadership, because all that you were measured on was, did you deliver your targets or not? That's all that was measured, and that is all that counts. So if you kind of are rewarding the wrong behavior, I mean, you're expecting a change in culture which is not going to happen.
True. Very, very true. Such a comprehensive answer, Prabir. Thank you so much for that. That actually makes me come and think that the enterprise is so high and mighty. And when we say enterprise, of course, as you rightly said, it's about bosses, it's about leaders, it's about individuals who flex when they want to flex. So let's talk a little bit, Prabir. And I know you speak what's on your mind, so I want to take the liberty of asking you this question. Let's talk a little bit about the mafia culture in the corporate world, right? Whether it is about a coterie, whether it's about a harem and saying, oh, you're part of inner circle or you're not part of inner circle because you lick ass very well, or you don't know how to lick ass, or you drink with us every Friday, or you don't come socializing outside of work, whatever may be the context. For people who are good at what they do, but they are not part of the mafia gang, and you have people coming after them, or you have situations that are hostile, how does one navigate? How does one manage or survive in a culture like this without getting toxic, without feeling or playing the victim card, and continue doing the work that you have to do? But it's not easy. It may sound easy, but
Okay.
it's not easy. So, what do you suggest? What's your counsel?
Yeah, brilliant question, Sahil. I mean, I don't even know whether I have an answer, because the reality is, if the ruling mafia or the operating leadership, which is fairly entrenched and is not going to go away, because it goes all the way to the board, right? I mean, it flows all the way. I mean, I've seen all these combinations. So if the CEO has the patronage of the board, and the CEO has, let us say, his inner circle, so to speak, then good, bad, ugly, that's there for keeps. Now, two things. One is, be damn good at what you do. That's the only assurance or guarantee or possible security that you have, that people cannot shortchange you. They may not like you, but they cannot deny you, they cannot ignore you, right? that itself means raising the bar for yourself for what your role uh, could deliver, not just historically did, but what the role could deliver. And that very honestly is not an easy answer. So that's the first part. If you are average, which is unfortunately the reality with most of us, we are okay. We are not God's gift to mankind. Then you will actually feel the pressure a lot sharper, because then every little thing will be picked up, magnified, and marked out. Every act of blemish, because you are not someone who's in the inner circle. And that is where most people start falling in line. Because they are average, they also start getting into the inner circle. They won't get into the sanctum sanctorum, but they'll at least get to be in the inner circle of a courtier who has his courtier, and that whole mansabdari system of organizations works. And that is why companies get very political. They get fief led, and therefore whatever the compelling logic of that fiefdom or that inner circle, that is how it happens. For a person to survive, one is you must be very, very good. Second is, at least do not start playing politics, right? And when I say politics, I'll caveat, like cholesterol, good cholesterol, bad cholesterol. Politics also is good politics and bad politics. Good politics is the art of influencing, right? Is the art. I mean, it is a political exercise. If Sahil can also support my advocacy, it will make a difference with my boss or whoever else, right? So how do I also convince Sahil is good politics. Bad politics is I'm playing dirty. I am kind of stabbing someone behind one's back. So don't get sucked into it, because the minute you do that, you give people the opportunity to have their knives out. And there is nothing like an absolute truth. It is the version of truth that the relevant people want to kind of accept, right? Oh, Prabir, as an example, oh, Prabir, you're high on candor. Now, high on candor could be a great strength. You should be looking for leaders who are high on candor. It's rare. You don't typically find people who have intellectual honesty and integrity, right? But should I read it that high on candor is not something that is a good thing in my context, right? And therefore, do I start toning it down? And when I start toning it down, where do I draw the line and say I will start telling the boss what he or she wants to hear, or what the grapevine will take back? So my advice will be, it's not worth doing this, because there's a professional reputation beyond a job title, beyond an organization. And if a day comes when you think that you don't really belong there, don't waste your life. Now, whether something else will be better, we don't know, because people also don't do the kind of diligence that they should when they make these kind of transitions. But I at least am not a guy who believes मेरा resume खराब हो जाएगा. And which unfortunately, as HR, as headhunters, people do. They will talk to your ex-boss and say, how was the guy? And maybe the guy left because of the boss. But what do you expect the boss to tell you? I mean, it is flawed. And I
Yeah,
find this
totally.
as a checklist all around. So I have believed that, again, one of my favorite lines, live a life of convictions, not consequences. Stand up, look them in the eye, do what is right. Not everyone is going to love you, like you. You will evoke jealousy, because see, that's the other part. Why does the guy not come every Friday evening for our drinks? Why does the guy dress like this? Why does the guy speak like that? I mean, jealousy is also a reality of human existence and in organizations, right? So you'll have your share of detractors, critics. I have mine, so I know, right? And at the end of the day, you just kind of take it on your chin and say, you do what you think is the right thing to do, because at the end of the day, when you sleep, you should sleep well. So these are my little markers that you should see. The day it starts dragging you or making you toxic, you start losing your sleep. No money, no title is worth it, Sahil. It is not worth it. There is more to life than what we typically imagine.
Perfect. Let's just shift gears a bit. We're also keeping tab on time, and I want to ask you many, many more questions that are coming to
Sure.
my mind right now. And your drink is also coming to an end before you get a refill. But I think let me tickle your funny bone, Prabir, and tell me, what is this whole family illusion? We are a family, and you're a family member to me, and all of that. So many organizations keep telling their employees they are family, but don't treat them like family. So why is this obsession with using the word family? What's your take on that?
So it's an Indian metaphor, right? Where we generally pride ourselves on our family moorings. We stand by each other through thick and thin and all that. But it is, again, exceptions notwithstanding, it's a very misused or misrepresented word. I'm not using abused, but misrepresented. First of all, there cannot be family. In a business firm, there cannot be family. In a family, even when shit hits the roof, you don't disown people. In corporates, every CEO believes the immediate silver bullet is remove people. I mean, it is bizarre. And not every in every company, a people cost is the biggest cost in driver of your business. But I mean, don't you think about this sometimes? That the first thing which people do is reduce people, reduce people. I have a lot of blood in my hands. I'm not saying it's, sometimes you don't need to do it, but I just feel that, the heartlessness, the soullessness. So family is always in good times, or family is when you are going through a bad phase as an organization and you can't pay well, then you appeal to all this. Oh, we are one family, we stick by each other, etc. So I think it's not true. Uh, I also don't think that you need to be a family to be effective, productive, and happy at work. You don't need to be family. Not every family is a hunky dory family. Let's also accept that, right? Families have their own pupajis and taus and siblings fighting and all of that kind of thing. Uh, so I think it is a very loosely and misrepresented metaphor. I think the important part is, can we be honest and respectful? See, I do not ever think that a person cannot lose his job. You must keep the performance bar high. You must give feedback. You must help the person get better. But if he or she cannot get to that threshold, what do? That person cannot drag the rest of the company down. But can you be honest and consistent in both feedback and in the effort of trying to turn the person around, either in terms of skills or in terms of behavior or whatever else? If it doesn't happen, at least your conscience is clear. And then comes the tough decision that, can I even ease the person out? And can you do it with respect? Because he or she may be the wrong person in your company at this point in time. But maybe in another company, in another role, with another set of people, maybe he will be a superstar. The challenge I find with a lot of, including HR practitioners, is they start playing God. The cockiness comes through, and you start saying, "Hey, Sahil, you're a no good. You should find another job, or don't come from tomorrow morning. Yeah, hakal diya." All kinds of expressions I've heard in my career. Or your swipe card doesn't work, but you can't look the guy in the eye and tell the person. So it is all about being honest, authentic. Your conscience should be clear, and then you reach a conclusion where you actually ease the guy out in as soft a way as possible. I have a lot of blood in my hands. Many people I have fired are some of my best friends today, because you have a difficult job as an HR practitioner of executing, let us say, a certain decision.
Yeah.
But can you understand the emotion? Can you understand the pain? And I can tell you, it is painful to the person doing it. I was much younger at that time, and I had, Y2K bubble had burst, and we had to let go of a lot of people. And I mean, you would go home and not want to have dinner, right? And you would ask yourself, whose war am I fighting? Because the CEO doesn't care. For him, it's just a number. So, it again flows from the top. So respect for people rather than the so-called, see, we speak a lot of things from the pulpit, which is one reason I don't attend many of these conferences, seminars. I just feel the hypocrisy provokes me.
Gets me.
करते रहो, बड़ी बड़ी बातें, बड़ी बड़ी बातें. At the end of the day, it's all about doing fundamental things right.
Right.
Just your fundamentals right, things will automatically fall in place. But we talk all the jargon, we talk all the big stuff. So no, I think this
Yeah.
is an overdone family illusion, and there is no family. For that matter, I would believe for many years in my professional career, best friend at work, which Gallup also asks, is a valid question. I honestly now don't think that it's possible. I mean,
Got
there
it.
is no
Oh,
best friend. There is no best
absolutely.
friend, right?
There is no
But it,
best friend at work.
but it
Yeah.
took me many years, because that was my belief till my experiences became different. And you realize that at the end of the day, there are only interests of people, right? And as long as, it works, it works. When it doesn't work, so I think you can still be a professional without being cutthroat. You can still be as emotionally engaged, but you do not expect or promise that till death do us apart, come high or low, I'm going to be there. That is
Got it.
not good. Yes.
Got it. We have a question that's come from our live audience, and I want to bring that up for you on the screen, Prabir. It says, what can an employee do if they don't have an HR manager with basic knowledge or experience of being an HR? So maybe someone's moved in from line, or someone is in HR but not competent enough. And of course, the person chooses to be anonymous, which is fine. But what's
Yeah.
the answer, Prabir?
So
What's your take
here
on this?
it's very clearly, it is what I read in the question is, it's not about someone coming from the line. I have hired in every company people from the line into HR, saying that give me 2 years of your career in HR, because it will give you the best leadership exposure possibly. You'll know how to do miracles with your hands and legs tied. All of them built careers in HR. I don't think the problem is there. The problem could be even with a guy who has an HR qualification, but they
Right.
don't have an HR soul. See,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, even before you kind of do all the so-called cerebral things of AI-led intervention and machine learning-led in, I mean, to the fundamental thing, are you available to your people?
Yeah.
Are you there even to offer them your ears? Can you even be a good counsel? I remember a CEO once told me very early in my career, Prabir, if you think you're the only agony aunt in the company, then sack your entire team. It was very hard, that feedback. But, he was right that it can't be only Prabir is the person. I mean, 12 o'clock at night, someone can call Prabir and Prabir will pick up the phone. It's not right. So, what does an employee do? The employee will go to some other HR, maybe the HR's boss. Maybe the guy will have, see, the first thing is your own immediate manager should be your best HR. I tell a lot of HR companies, CHROs today, that more than doing your job, learn to realize your job is to get things done. Your job is to get your line managers become better people managers. 90% of employee engagement, the deployment of HR policies and practices happens by the line manager. Why are you playing God? It is not HR's job.
Right.
HR, I believe, will shrink in terms of numbers, but will actually amplify its strategic, implications. So people are getting their agenda wrong, CHROs. But now he's a CHRO, she's a CHRO, so they know it all, right?
Yeah.
So I think in this particular case, go to your line manager, go to the line manager's boss. That's all that you can do. But you cannot, go to someone who is indifferent, doesn't understand, doesn't appreciate. You'll do it once, you'll do it twice, thrice, you won't go. And which is actually an apathy, which is back to that larger issue of culture that you're showing. Who is really bothered? We do engagement surveys, climate surveys. Sahil, today I mean, I've done my share. And today I ask people, are you really bothered? I recently had done some work for an MNC client. And I can tell you, hats off to them. I made some very strong recommendations when I did some culture assessment work, and they made 5 very senior level exits. It is not a joke. Very senior level exits. But in most cases, what happens? Nothing happens. It becomes a ritual. So if that's the kind of an HR guy, then you have a problem. You can go beyond. Again, the simple answer is, once you've tried enough, do not wait for that ostrich to kind of take its head away from from the sand. It's not going to happen. It's better
Right.
to move pastures and go to a place which hopefully will acknowledge you better.
Absolutely. Prabir, we've actually seen this, that a lot of people have great amount of loyalty to the chair, right? We've seen this, we Prabir, the CHRO, Prabir, the CHRO of a great multinational and all of that. But today, Prabir, the founder of Prabir Jha People Advisory, still comes on News Hour, still comes and still writes in leading newspapers and gets invited to write in various columns, still gets invited to share his point of view on television. So is it that Prabir has done something right? Of course, Prabir adds value. There's no taking away from that. But there are so many people who also add value, but they don't get invited because they are X so and so organization or X so and so
Yeah.
title. And they don't get invited because for all this while they were invited because of the position they were holding. So, what does Prabir Jha do differently that people still solicit his time to come on television to write articles to share his point of view?
So, Sahil, someone like you would should be answering the question, not me, really. But I'll make a guess. A, as a matter of principle, and you should see it. I never ever encourage someone to say ex CHRO of ta 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 ta. I do not believe an X is my identity. It was an it was an opportunity of making a contribution. I did that as well as I could, but that is it. Today, I always say founder and CEO of Prabir Jha People Advisory because that's my identity, right? And if Prabir Jha doesn't ring a bell, well, it's fine. It's okay. Why should anyone even know what who Prabir Jha is? But I would like to believe in the HR world. Prabir Jha has built a track record of impact and uh, and fresh thinking across multiple pitches. I always tell people if you're able to hit a century on every track from Brisbane to Islamabad to whatever in Lahore to Cape Town to Wankhede,
Dubai, those are
you are a
evaluated.
great guy. Otherwise, one company, one group, you politically have gamed the system, right? So I think I have worked across industries, across companies where your reputation is only as good as till you come. Then you've got to build it and build beyond. So that is one. Second is, see, first, people must have a point of view, a
Hmm.
deeply reasoned point of view. And I'll be honest, not everyone has. They may think they have, they don't have, right? At least you must have. And the third is, they must have the courage and conviction to express a point of view. I have been on television shows with some well known people, including from our fraternity, and they say, oh, I don't want to sound politically incorrect. I don't mince my words. This is my point of view. I'm not saying anyone has to agree with me. I write every day, which I've written for 20 years, and people said, oh, does Prabir write his own tweets? Does Prabir write his own posts? I mean, it is hideous sometimes. It is hurtful, right? I mean, who's stopping you from writing? But the fact is, am I forcing Sahil to read anything that I write? Am I forcing you to watch me on television? Am I going to a television anchor saying, hey, call me? I'm sitting in my home. I am doing all my other things that we talked about. But if someone reaches out and you believe that you have a point of view, I say it without mincing words. Not everyone may like it, but it is rare to have people, and people actually want someone with the ability to cut through the clutter. I think I
Right.
do that, cutting through the clutter. That's what a lot of my clients say. That Prabir, we can tell you anything. You'll finally say this is your core issue. There's no other problem. So I think this is something which is Saraswati's gift to me, and but I'd love to for you to think about and tell me, why? Because yes, without a crutch, and I'm very proud of that. It's been 6 years without a crutch. My followership has only increased. I mean, nothing has actually changed in my life. I continue to give away my CSR thing on all my social media handles every day. And but if tomorrow it were to fall, so be it. How does it matter?
Absolutely. Prabir, I also think that, when your followers are more than many organizations who have their company pages, when
Correct.
your individual brand, your personal brand becomes larger than the organization brand, we see that a lot of insecurities start surfacing. Does Prabir or has Prabir ever worried about those insecurities, or he's just gone out to do what he has to do? And if enemies have been built in the process, so be it. That's collateral damage.
Absolutely. One thing which God has blessed me with is I have no anxiety, I have no insecurity. Let's look at it this way, Sahil. When I, at 23, joined the civil service, what was aspiration? Aspiration, the civil list, your date of birth, where you are in the seniority list, exactly you will become secretary to the government of India in 23, 24, which is exactly what has happened with a lot of my batchmates. March 31st, 2027, at the age of 60, you would have retired with a Maruti 800 and a flat in Dwarka, Delhi. That was aspiration. Why fake and talk unnecessary things about, that was aspiration. And I'd not seen another world. That was the world in which I had grown up as a child. uh, God has been very, very kind to me. People have been very, very kind to me. I'm very grateful. No one needed to have given me the love, affection, adulation, respect that they have. I mean, no one needed to have called me to do this conversation. Sahil, you did, at the end of the day. So people have been nice. When you come with that thing of saying, I do not have expectations of anyone, I'm not hurting anyone consciously. But in my speaking or doing, if someone feels, oh, I'm looking smaller or my turf has got impacted, bad luck. Because it's not about my personal aggrandizement. It has never been. It has never been. I mean, even to a minister, I would say, no, you want to overrule my decision, please put it on file. Don't tell me what to write on the file. I was a 23-year-old, 24-year-old guy. I will not do that. Similarly, in corporates, you overrule me as a boss. You have but allow me my opportunity of being able to present my point of view. And that's exactly what I've done with my teams. You talk to anyone in my team, I mean, they must be smarter
Right.
than me, better than me, and they were. Uh, and they should be able to think different than me. But as a boss, it is also my prerogative to see, does it all finally add up into the larger picture that is there. So no insecurity, anxiety. Even if I don't earn a penny tomorrow, God has been very kind. I my needs are very, very limited, right? So, and the best thing of being on your own is it's such a liberating feeling. You're not there to impress anyone. I mean, who cares? At the end of it, I bump into people almost every day, saying, hey, Prabir, can I take a selfie with you? Have I asked them, come and take a selfie with me? I mean, if they like to take a selfie, you just put your arms around that guy, the guy is happy. So now if someone feels jealous that how he has so many 550,000 followers, how do I know, yeah? How do I know? So jealousy is a very human instinct. And I always say that, let it be. It's fine. I have no
Right.
jealousy. I have no nothing against everyone. They're all great guys. But would I have wanted to be like X, Y, and Z? The answer is no. I'm happy being who I am because I sleep well.
Beautiful. Prabir, we are moving to the last segment of Quick Bites with HR Bites, and people tell me they really love this one because it's called the rapid fire. And I'm sorry I haven't given you the questions in advance, but I don't think you need them in advance. So we don't do that, but brace yourself. There are only two requests. One is be as quick as possible, the first thought in your mind. And two, we love to see the fun side to you as well, and not always just the serious side, but bring in the fun side as well. Okay, are you ready to brace yourself?
Yes,
Okay, what's the one culture statement that should be banned forever?
we are a great culture.
Good one, that's
There is
nice.
there is no great culture ever because culture is always dynamic. It's yeah.
Okay, so if culture was a Bollywood movie, what would you call it?
मुकद्दर का सिकंदर.
क्या बात है, मुकद्दर का सिकंदर. All right. Would you rather have a toxic boss who gets you results or a great boss who does just about nothing?
No, I would love this second because I would deliver him the results.
क्या बात है, क्या
I
बात
would
है.
deliver him the results. And I've had a boss like that, so I know. I would
Who
deliver
just
the
about
results.
did nothing and Prabir got his work done.
Yeah, I got everything done for him. But a toxic boss, no, never.
No, never. Okay. What's the one phrase that HR leaders, HR heads, CHROs say about culture that makes you want to roll your eyes?
Yeah, I don't know. Culture is the most important agenda for us. Honestly, when
Nice
when
one.
the agenda itself is a footnote in a management meeting agenda or in the board, annual report, what nonsense,
Correct. Why do most CEOs think that their company has a great culture, but their employees think otherwise?
They see a different mirror than what the employees see themselves in. They're seeing different mirrors. So maybe his mirror tells him what he wants to hear or see, and the employees sees another mirror. So that's how it
Got
is.
it.
Change your mirror.
Got it. Change the mirror. Who is responsible for culture? Is it HR? Is it the CEO? Or is it the chai wala or the sutta wala, where everybody goes, gossips, and he actually gives suggestions on how you can improve the culture of the organization?
Why does it have to be one? Everyone.
Brilliant. Brilliant. What's more dangerous, bad culture or no culture? Or your culture you can't identify with?
No culture. Because I do not think that is ever a reality in companies. It is the ignorance, not the non existence. Even by default, there is some culture. Even the fact that there is no culture is culture, right? And it will allow you to probe, explore, and possibly, evolve into something better. But a bad culture, oh, that is already, sinking. So why would you live with it?
Got it. Let me ask the antithesis. Can great culture survive a bad boss?
Yes, can. If the
Say
culture
more.
is that strong that the bad boss is going to be plucked out of his role and be thrown out, yes, great cultures, and that's what great cultures do. A bad boss beyond a point will not survive.
Brilliant. And on that amazing note, Prabir, thank you so much. I think there are a lot of questions on the chat, but whenever you get time, you could respond to them on LinkedIn. But
Sure.
thank you so much for your time. It was a wonderful conversation, and I wish you all the very best for everything else that you're outside to do.
Thank you very much, Sahil, for having me on your show. You were very good. Journalism is an alternate line for you for sure, but we don't want to lose you in HR. Continue the good work, and God bless you always. All the very best.
Thank you, Prabir. Take care. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. And that was Prabir Jha for you. We're going to be back next Monday, 8 p.m., same time on Quick Bites with HR Bites. I'm sure all of you are already following Prabir Jha. And because he's never going to ask you to follow him, in case you're not, do look him up on LinkedIn. There are some amazing selfies, some amazing hats, and some amazing wisdom that will come your way. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. And those who are going to watch this video later on, I hope you enjoy it. Do share your feedback with us. Thank you. Good night.